What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to you, the restoration business owner. My name is Ben Riccardi. I am your host, and I'm the CEO of Ironclad Restoration Marketing, where I help restoration business owners get more sales by getting their internet marketing right. I want to welcome everybody that's joining us live on LinkedIn and YouTube. Sorry, we had a little technical hiccup here. We're running a little bit late, but that's because I forgot to hit go live, and I've been talking with Jon, our very special guest that we're going to introduce here shortly, for about 5 minutes now before we realize it. Anyhow, if you haven't noticed yet, today we are super excited to have this episode air because we're bringing on not only our very first guest, but he just so happens to be the very best guest we might ever bring onto this show. You may know him as the Intentional Restorer. He's the host of the Dyojo Podcast, and he is an accomplished author and happens to be a restoration contractor. And I'm going to bring him on right now. No further ado, I want to welcome Mr. Jon Isaacson from the Dyojo Podcast onto the Restoration Rundown. Look at that beard. Isn't it glorious? Jon, what's going on, man?
Oh, sorry. Just doing a little bit of reading. I had my thinking music on. Man, this book here, but I people may think this is a prop, but I genuinely read the first book that you sent. And I really did enjoy it. And while it gives me all the things I need to know to do it myself, it also makes me realize I don't want to do it myself. So great book, The No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors, revised edition.
Well, that's it for the episode today, guys. Jon knows our book, and we don't need anything else here. No, I'm just kidding. Jon, listen, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on board. I've been on your podcast, the Dyojo, one time. It's been a little bit, but we're always going back and forth online. We share very similar kind of stories in a sense that we're really here to really help people in this industry and kind of create a better culture of the giver's gain mentality, if you will. So I want to welcome you on the podcast. I got to say that beard is awesome. And you are, for everybody out there that doesn't know you, if you've been living under a rock, if you're in the restoration industry, you don't know Jon. Jon is known as the Intentional Restorer. He's an accomplished author. He's written 3 books in the space, just had one launched not that long ago. He's the host of Dyojo Podcast, which is awesome. I always am checking out Dyojo to learn a little bit more about the industry. He's got like the heavy hitters of guests coming on there. So Jon, give me a little background on yourself. Where are you guys based out of, and what do you do?
So this hat here is our local baseball team, the Tacoma Rainiers. But are you familiar there on the East Coast with Rainier Beer, Vitamin R, Ron Ye?
No, but you know what? That sounds like something I need to get really familiar with pretty quickly.
We should probably be, well, it's like 10:30 here. You're at 1:30. You're a little closer to an appropriate drinking time, right? But
it's Friday.
It is Friday. Yeah.
Really.
But I think we were talking a little bit. It's like for people that don't know, it's like Moontucky is the lager in Montana. It's the local lager. They got bought out by PBR, so it's not as local anymore. But any of my Pacific Northwest peeps we're representing. So I am in. That's a long way of saying I live in Puyallup, which is right east of Tacoma, which is Seattle. Almost everybody associates Washington with Seattle. And that's I hail from the hallowed halls of Tacoma.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. I was mentioning before when we were in the green room that I've got family in Southwest Montana. So I'm familiar with the Moontucky cold snacks, and I'm definitely going to have to get familiar with Vitamin R pretty soon. I mean, we're down in Florida. We talked a little bit. We've had the brewery boom down here the last few years. So, I mean, I literally couldn't walk 20 feet without tripping over a brewery. So we don't have, and that's the problem of Florida in general. It's such a transient state that we don't really have, outside of Florida, man, we don't have like anything we can claim as our own as far as beer. Now, I've got a few local favorites that I love out of Palm Beach County. But, as far as having like that signature like you guys have, or I know I have friends up in Maryland that have, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of their beer, but they've got one too that's like, it's like the PBR, but it's like kind of crappy, but it's really good because you want to drink it all the time.
Okay.
Anyway, so the beer would definitely, maybe next episode we'll do some beer tastings. I'll send you some stuff from Florida. You can send me some of that Vitamin R, and we'll see what goes with that.
Yeah.
But for now, for the purposes of what we're doing here today, I know, a little bit about your background. But, first I want to talk about, your start in the restoration industries. You own a restoration company called Eris out there in Washington State. So give me a little bit of a background on, how you got into the industry, a little bit about the company.
Yeah, I'm my fancy title is VP of Operations. I'm becoming an owner, so signed on and got some ownership options, that kind of thing. But my start let's go back to 2002. I had a job. I was transitioning to jobs. I had got a job closer to home. My wife was pregnant with her first child. We think it's mine.
I think it's yours. I'm just going to go out on a limb.
And so I had a bad job with bad people. And so I was applying to anything and everything. In the newspaper of all places, there was an ad for a local service master for carpet cleaning. Do you cover newspaper ads here in this manuscript?
No, not yet. I'm waiting for my time machine to get here, and then we're going to go back to 40 years, and we'll have a chapter on that. It's literally just going to be an ad for the book, or an attorney, like an attorney. But it's funny you say that, because Google works very much like a newspaper ad nowadays, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But back to the newspaper ad for carpet cleaning.
Newspaper ads are making a comeback. You heard it here, folks. So answered an ad for carpet cleaning, and it was one of those just applying to anything and everything. Going to the interview, I thought I was going into criminal justice at the time, and the owner I interviewed with was like, with your background in science, you'd be real good in this new division we're starting, mold remediation. I said, yeah, I agree. And so they put me in a suit, go rip out walls. One of my favorite things was it was real physical work. There was always something new to do, but we got in at 7, at 10, I would eat my lunch on our 15-minute break, and then we were allowed hour-long breaks. Hint to some of the owners out there: give your people the opportunity to kind of work with their breaks. And I could study or take a nap, during that hour break, and then my 2:00 break, eat again, and then once we got off around 3:30 most days, then usually it was stop by the house for a little bit and then go to school, and it was a real good opportunity. So I thought I was going in another route. And they offered me management positions. And I tell people this all the time, I could write my paperwork so it was legible. And I really sought to make my manager's job easier, right? They said, I need this friggin' paperwork to be able to bill properly for the job. And I said, okay, that's what you need. Then that's what I'm going to do. And at first I'd chicken scratch in the field and then take it home at night and rewrite it. And pretty crazy what can happen in your career if you just do your dang paperwork.
Imagine that.
And then if you're career minded, make your boss's job easier. And so that's so those doors kept opening, and the criminal justice stuff wasn't. And so it wasn't. I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but it was So.
But it got you here. So this was quite a while ago. So as far as, where, fast forward now to where you are, VP of Operations, you've got your foot in the door per se for some sort of ownership in the company.
I have to kill the owner.
That's okay.
That's my ownership plan.
You've got the ultimate warrior in the background. Yep. Somebody already dropped a comment about your half-naked man in the room. Nothing suspicious, but listen, you guys don't understand that is a motivation that you walk into every day to end up taking over a company. You're not going to go into a company to take over an ownership from somebody with, some poster with a guy that's fully clothed. You got to have somebody that's jacked, ripped, ready to go, ready to tear somebody apart. Look at that guy. Speaking
of jacked and ripped, you're a monster.
No, so it's funny that you mentioned
that twice a day.
No, I do. Waking up and going to bed is kind of a workout. Getting in and out of bed, I usually either rock myself to sleep, trying to get up, or I'm falling down into bed. But I'll backtrack a little bit. So we as a company, I say we as a company, talking about JC, my partner, and myself, during the COVID year, we're coming to the office. We kind of realized, looking in the mirror, man, we put on some weight in the last few years. Not only with me with getting a dad bod, I've got a young child, and I just kind of gave up on everything at that point.
There you go.
But
It's hard.
We decided as a company, which was really cool and really helped with the culture a little bit. We were going to go on like a weight loss competition where incentivize it. So
Okay.
I have a little bit of a background in like exercise and stuff like that. I played sports. I used to run a fitness boot camp, but then I, let go. So I, turned the dad bod. So what we did is in 2020, right in the beginning of the year, we set out on this path where we're holding each other accountable. And I think collectively, I dropped like 60 something pounds, I think, since then. JC's down like 30, which he really didn't need to lose as much weight as I did. But, collectively it was great. And we ended up getting a bunch of people on board, which is really cool. So I appreciate the sentiments that I look like a monster. I do have a filter on that makes me look really, really super jacked right now. And that's why I cut off the bottom half. Not only am I not wearing pants, but you'd be able to see that I've got the hangover going on. Yeah, too many Montucky cold snacks in my life. But so ownership wise, so back to, you're on this path to kind of take over. I'm sure, and being an operations guy, you've dealt with everything that you could possibly deal with as far as, in the realm of getting sales and leads. Like what kind of issues did you face, or do you guys face as a restoration company before we get into to everything else about your book and everything?
So currently, like you said, you said your company is 2 people, right? My favorite thing online is what is it? Owner, founder, CEO, even mine's ridiculous, VP of operations. And it's like the majority of companies are, that's not to denigrate it in any way, but it's just funny to say, like, yeah, I'm the chief executive officer of what?
Right.
And so, but everybody has to start somewhere, and we're a small company. I mean, we're a tiny company in Washington, growing. And so we hired our first admin. We've got 2 right-run project managers, and we're working hard to try to separate out and delegate, all the growing pains, right? When you're 2 guys, and that's how we started, me and Chuck, and we did everything, right?
Yeah.
And then we make the next hire. And so you start to be able to delegate a little bit and set people maybe a little bit more into their zones. And then, we hired an admin, and that's taken a lot of some of those other pressures, the office work off. So what currently, one of the biggest challenges I think our company is facing is wasting time. And so, we thankfully, knock on wood, not trying to toot a horn or anything, we've been able to get a decent amount of leads. And part of that's through program work. Oh my gosh, he said it. We do program work. So we're one of the villains. We're one of the evil ones. And then we get leads from mitigation contractors because we don't do the MIT. And then we're working real hard to, with blogs and a lot of the things you're talking about in the book, right? I make some videos to try to and kind of boost those locally, to try to share for a homeowner or business owner. This is what your insurance claim should look like from the contractor's perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense. And so with that wasting time, it's like I sit down with our team all the time, and it's like, if I could spend time on a project that's going to make me money versus chasing something that we know is not, what are some of the things we can do to better screen our clients? And we've started doing you'll hear it here first. I haven't really talked to many people about this, a letter of intent, where we don't charge them up front. I know a lot of contractors are experimenting and having good results with that, but we say, we want you to sign a letter of intent saying that basically the way we explain it, if you decide not to use us, because what's happening a lot is we write a pretty darn good scope and they hire the cheaper guy, right? So if you decide to do that, that's completely fine. But what we ask is we're able to recover our time. And so it lists out like our hourly rate and the minimum. And there's actually been some insurance companies that even pay that. We put that in the estimate and they pay that. Not all of them, and definitely not in program work, right?
Yeah.
But, so it's so funny because everybody's like, silver bullet this, silver bullet that. There's no friggin' silver bullets. It's try it, make sure it's legal, discuss it amongst yourselves, make sure it's ethical, and then test it out, right? The first time explaining it to a customer, it's like, we have this letter of intent. And the first customer I talked to about it, they're like, that makes sense. Like, oh yeah, it does. Yes.
Yeah, you get a little bass. You get a little more bass in your voice after that. The next couple phone calls. So yeah, I mean, it's being consistent with that too. And and you're not gonna. And it's like anything in life. Just you nailed it. Try it, do it, make sure it works within the parameters and the scope of what you're trying to accomplish. But more so, be consistent and not have that shiny new object syndrome where you're bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
Pick a path, get on it, make sure it works, trial and error. Because that's really the only way to really shake out to see if something's going to work.
All the crap we do though, is that right? Even internet marketing, right? If you're just like, I want more leads. Well, that's not specific enough. Like, what kind of leads do you want? Where do you want them from?
Yes.
So ours was, when we really sat down, it's like, we're wasting a lot of time on stuff that's not paying the bills. So how do we?
That you're intentional now with what you're trying to do?
I
mean, are you being intentional? So, and where I want to get to is like, so you host this podcast about that, right? I mean, you are writing books about this stuff. How did you go from, and I'm just going out on a limb here. You didn't just start writing books. You didn't start doing any of that.
I lost all my hair.
You know what? It's funny that you said that about running a business and having a small business and how many different hats that you have to wear. So now you have your third hat of the 15 minutes into the interview. So walk me through a little bit how Dyojo came about and give us a little background on what it is. If there's anybody out there that's going to be listening to this, we're streaming or watching live that might not know about you. How did that come about from your path to vice president of operations?
So I like the story. Podcasting, I was working for an abatement company, right? And we were brainstorming ideas to get in front of contractors that would refer us or use us for abatement, right? So if I cold call a contractor like, hey, ex-contractor, can I come talk to you? Can I bring coffee for your team? Blah, 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 right? No, we're too busy, right? Everybody's friggin' busy. And this was COVID too. So even harder to get in-person meetings and get the word out there. So I'm sitting in a meeting and I said, why? I had been debating the idea. Michelle Blevins and my good friend Greg Power, I like to write. That's my comfort zone. And so if I could do that, and they both encourage at separate times, like just make a little video that goes along with your article. It'll accelerate the content that you're trying to get out, right? So, okay. So then there's these podcasts. I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts almost more than I listen to music, just depending on the day, right? Mm-hmm. And so I came to the company and I said, let's do a podcast. And they're like, what's it now? And so I said, this podcast literally does not have to have any listeners to be successful. Because if I go to ex-contractor and I say, hey, would you like to talk about yourself? And they're like, yeah, I'd like to talk about myself. Little secret, everybody likes to talk about themselves, right? Oh, I don't. Bullshit. So, that's what I said. I was like, we'll go to this, we had a list of contractors we're trying to get with. I was like, I bet you I could get 60% of them to go on a podcast. I'm like, well, what would this take? And I was like, it wouldn't take anything. Like, we just need, I maybe need $100 microphone and a video camera and just dedicate the time. And they said, well, why don't you do a test run or something like that? And I was so pissed. I was like, no, I'm not going to do a test run. You guys are either in or you're out. Like, I'm not going to waste time doing it. They're like, well, let's think about it. And we had an ops guy at the time. And so anyways, so I said, you know what? I'm going to prove it works. And so that's how the Dyojo podcast got started. But that encouragement to anybody out there, I think your book touches on this too, is like, just start doing something, right? Like start. You're going to
quote on the cover.
What's that?
The quote on the cover. The start is what stops most people.
Don Shula, right?
Don. Yeah, no, it's true.
Just start somewhere, and as you continue to do it, you'll get better at it, right? You're going to get your teeth kicked in. People are going to hate it. But, if you know what your goal is, right? Like in that particular instance, the goal was to get in touch with other contractors. Like, nobody has to watch it for it to be successful. It just depends on like if you're trying to grow the biggest podcast ever, then you're going to have to play that game. But,
you got to have me as a guest. I mean, obviously.
There you
go. So I know you started. So it sounds like so you started. I guess we'll call it as a foot in the door to get in with guys in the industry. Say, hey, you want to come on a podcast, and it's a way to get to know people, and that's awesome because that's one touch point. And obviously this has evolved into something much bigger than that.
Yeah.
So what can you talk about how that works and, kind of what the goals are now? I mean, I'm sure the goals have shifted somewhat now with your podcast. And did the books come after you started Dyojo? Did you already write those before?
Shoot, do I have the book up here? So, okay. The podcast, the other thing that happened with the podcast was COVID hit, right? And all this cleaning stuff. And I was watching a video of someone promoting their cleaning, and they're just wiping the walls like this. And anybody that's done mold or any level of effective cleaning, we used to always teach our teams for mold. Imagine there's chicken blood, you got raw chicken all over the counter. If I just go like this, I've now taken a small problem and I've made it that much worse. So you've got to have a specific, never double dip. You always got a clean rag, you fold the surfaces, you wipe. So the first couple 4 or 5, I think, it was called 3 Questions with a Pro. It wasn't even the Dyojo podcast, but it was videos reaching out to people, trying to get like alternative sources. We have this hive mindset that somehow only restoration people know what's going on in restoration. And like, there's a lot of noise and a lot of just bad, crappy advice out there. And so I think it's important, know what you know. One of my favorite podcasts in the space is Jarrett Steer's GMS podcast, because he just asks questions. He's not a restorer. He makes an awesome the GMS distribution box, and he just asks good questions. I've enjoyed watching yours. You come from the value standpoint, right? It's not like, hey, sign up with Ironclad. It's like, hey, think about this. This is what SEO is. This is what this is. This is what this is. Do this simple tweak. Boom. It's not going to overnight increase your SEO, but it'll creep it towards the goal. Right. So that was the other motivator for the podcast. And then I read another great book from Rachel Stewart, Unqualified Success, Bridging the Gap Between Where You Are Now and Where You Want to Be. I was on an airplane. I don't remember where, but it clicked that the Dyojo was kind of the thing. I think I had a brand that people could identify with. And my article, I believe it was 2018. It was at R&R when Michelle Blevins was at R&R. It was the 10 Commandments of Xactimate Estimating Success. And it was the most popular article of 2018. And so it wasn't like I read that. She sends a list out that says, this is that. And I was like, it wasn't like, oh, cruel, I got the best article. I was like, oh, people are interested. It was helpful. I was hoping that's what that indicated. It was helpful, right? So then basically I had the meat there and just repurposed that from an article, expanded on some of those things and turned that into a book. So
turn that into now.
That was the Be Intentional Estimating book.
Yeah. The Be Intentional Estimating. And you've since then published 2 other books. You've got the Be Intentional Culture, which is huge. And it's on my list of things to read. I have a stack about this high of books, and that's in there. And not only because of, knowing you and following you for a while, but I believe culture is a huge part of any company. We're a digital marketing agency. We specialize in helping restoration contractors. And, it's very important to me to have a culture that is, you mentioned, taking those hour breaks and understanding and empowering your employees to do certain things. Because, if you are the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. Right. So creating
unless you're in a room full of 5th graders. Yeah.
Well, I mean, unless you're a 5th grade teacher, I'll keep throwing. So no, I mean, and so that's killer. I mean, you said writing is something that you're really into. I share that same sentiment. I feel like, writing is a big, strong point of mine. And we started doing this. So can you talk a little bit about, why did you write these books in the first place? I mean, is that really just like, hey, I wanted to just help and make millions of dollars and just get as many fat heads of Ultimate Warrior and WWF guys as possible? Or what was the motivation behind, the series? And again, the series is called the Be Intentional series. I mean, are those ones, bro?
Do you see this? Is
that ones?
Oh, damn. It's literally all ones. I think my wife got into my wallet. These are all ones. That wasn't intentional, but Yeah, I thought there was going to be a 20 in there or something. Yikes.
If there's anybody in a country that the dollar is strong in, is probably looking at this like, damn, this guy's got it going on. I need to get out to Washington State.
I need to write me some books.
Yeah, right. So you've got these 3 books under your belt, and as somebody that's written a book, or 2, I guess 1.5 books, we have the revised edition, which is like 90 extra pages. That's a lot of work, man. Like, so how did you do it? Like, and you're hosting this, I mean, you guys air an episode once a week, like minimum, or are you doing more than that? So how did you?
Well, I first set out, you'll laugh at this, I wanted to do 2 a week.
Okay.
When I first set out. So, and then there are interviews, did some editing. My goal always, like, I call it infotainment. So your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. So the strength is I create the podcast that I think I would want to listen to.
Yeah.
What that tells me is there's not a lot of people that want to listen to the things that I want to listen to. So we've got, 14 listeners, 14 faithful listeners. We had at the beginning of the year 12, one of them died, and then we added 3. And so, but yeah, it's a ton of work. So I went from trying to do 2 a week to like, oh my gosh, this is too much work. And then I went to live. The beauty of live is there's no editing.
Yeah.
The downfall of live is there's no editing. And so, you get a dud, or somebody, doesn't, bring their A game, then, you're where you're at.
Yeah.
And like this, right? I mean, you're probably thinking like, yeah, geez, Jon, thanks for bringing it. And so with the books, I had this harebrained scheme that if I got other people to write with me, everybody would share in the cross promotion and those kinds of things. And so the culture book was intended to be first for that purpose, a little bit selfishly, like, let's cut the work out or distribute the load,
sure,
cross promote, and it would generate some buzz. It was more work, because you're editing. Not everybody meets the deadlines, and that's not any fault. I mean, just people are friggin' busy,
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to get everybody coordinated. And then people would drop out for various personal reasons, professional reasons, those kinds of things. And so, and we had a publisher lined up, and they had to bow out as well, and somebody that was experienced in that process. So then I didn't feel like it was fair to experiment on the first book that could potentially impact other people.
Yeah.
So I moved the estimating book up, and it's like, this will be my experimental baby. And so that's why it came out first. And so, the culture book was a lot of fun, just because the idea there was get leaders in companies to share about things that have worked for them and not worked for them. Really the principle was, what's one thing that's really helped you, one small thing that's helped you that you do consistently, and what's one experience or thing that you've done that you're like, oh crap, I say this, but I'm doing this, and it really impacted where I'm trying to go. So it's designed to be, one of those, kind of a practical, book. So.
And I can't say enough how I love the be intentional, mantra. I mean, that, like, your nickname, and that's what we preach here with whether it's our clients or my value that I'm just putting out here. Hopefully there's some value. And it's funny, you had that stack of ones. That's like how I look at how many people listen to my podcast. Like I'm like, on a good day, we've got literally ones of people watching or listening in. But that's not the point. The point is, for that person that might be struggling, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've owned multiple businesses, and it sounds like you've done a lot. You've been through this journey to get where you're at now. So if these things could even just offer that one person just that little thing that they could do to push themselves to that next level, or at least reaffirm that they're on the right track, I think that's a great goal to have at the end of the day. So is there any kind of way people should be reading your books, like an order? Is there, or just whatever they're struggling with?
So I think the culture book kind of is a standalone, that's, I guess that there's a thread. So I try to write in principle to people like myself. Like, I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, or the most talented, but like, if you're hardworking, and you're honest and you're willing to learn, like, you can learn anything and everything in this industry, right? And I believe you would say it's the same with what you do with SEO, right? Like it's not you're a brainiac, right? That God just like showed you the golden key, right? It's a lot of friggin' hard work, trial and error, and trying to I think this person can help me understand this a little bit better. So the books are all written to people like myself, like you want to grow your career. Okay, and they're all kind of more mindset and habits. My books are not at this point like technical manuals that are going to take you step by step through the process. And honestly, it's more changing your mindset. Like if you want to get from A to B, what got you to A, you're going to have to keep those core principles intact, those core values. But you got to change your mindset and you got to change your perspective if you want a different result, So that paperwork type of thing, that's a consistent, right? As you move up the ladder, as you get into leadership roles, it's more paperwork, not less. So if you're a technician and you want to promote, do your damn paperwork, like it's you're not going to have less paperwork as you promote. It's not like you're going to get out of doing those things that are tedious. And a lot of the other stuff I see all the time, and even in my own experience, people get put into management roles. You have some kind of proficiency. Maybe you're doing your paperwork better. Maybe you're faster than this guy or this. And so you get put in a leadership role, or a management role, and there's no training and helping. And I don't mean that as a dig at owners and other managers. There's just not a lot of time, right? So It's like, most of us were thrown into roles and had to figure it out. And we swear to ourselves, when I get into a role, I'm going to do it different. And then you get into the role and you're like, oh crap. If you're honest with yourself, you're doing a lot of the same things. Maybe you're doing a little bit better, right? Like being a new parent, right? Like if your only goal is to be a little bit better than your parents, then, that's not a great vision. It's like, okay, what are kind of my core principles? What do I want to see happen in my family? Same thing at work.
Right.
What's important to us? What's going to be different about us? And then be realistic. Like if you're trying to tackle 12 things at once, like you're just going to burn yourself out. So just take that one thing. And if it takes you 3 months to get that down, so be it. You got it down, right? Like it's the same thing as you're going through the project management book. If you're working on a job, right, try to do everything you can in that file at that time until you get to a point where you can no longer do something else. And sometimes that means like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be answering phone calls for an hour because I need to get this done. And then, you look at your phone and, you try to think like, is that an emergency or not an emergency? But if you can knock things off the list rather than keep carrying the list over, you'll actually get something done. So a lot of that is just simplifying. So long answer. I think the thread in the books, my target would be people that want to move up in their career, people that are new to management, and then owners trying to, I would hope an owner would read it and say, yeah, these are a lot of things I'm saying, and I'd like, it just comes from another voice, right? It just hits a little
right. It's
a
reaffirmation.
Yeah. So I think magical. It's just, okay, this guy said it.
You hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, with anything in life, right? It's your brain. You got to look at your brain like a garden, and no matter what seed you plant in it, your brain is abundant in its abundance of pushing whatever that seed is that you plant. And so, when you're planting knowledge and you're planting these positive thinkings, and you have a goal in mind. So if you are a guy that's just starting out, a laborer, and I've been in the site development industry, like I've laid, family, trade as we were pipe layers. So I've been there. I worked manual labor since the time I was 12 up until, I started diving in and teaching myself digital marketing about 8 or 9 years ago, and then, created this company. But you have a goal in mind. Sometimes that goal, you can get there quick if you're just super hyper focused, which I'm not. I'm kind of all over the place. But you end up getting there as long as you're clear and you're intentional in your steps that you make, whether it takes you a month or 7 years to get there. If you stay on that path, you're going to get there. So your books are an awesome way for guys. If you're listening out there and you're looking for a way to move up in your company, you got to check out the series of 3 books. You can go to Dyojo.com. What's the easiest way for them to buy the book?
Probably on Amazon is the easiest.
Okay.
Like if you want to order in bulk, I can do some discounts, and some people want signed copies. I'll be at RIA in April, RIA in Reno, and so I'll have some books with me if people want signed copies or bring it or whatever.
I won't be in Reno, unfortunately. We're going to be at the next one, but I definitely want to get a signed copy one of these days of the book.
Yep.
So I want to go to switch gears a little bit, right? So I want to give a little bit more value. So we talked about your book. We talked about, your path to getting here in the restoration industry. So I want to talk a little bit to guys out there that might be an entrepreneur, that might want to be getting started in the industry. Maybe they work for somebody else, kind of how you did, and they're ready to go. If you had to do it all over again, you had to start a restoration company, what would you do, knowing now, what would you do different? And, kind of what would be like the foundation that you set right off the bat?
Honestly, if I have this conversation frequently, if I were going to start over again, I would only chase fires because the magnitude of, you just need a handful of those to reach, say, that $1 million mark. Right. And then you could subcontract everything or perform what you want to perform. I think right now, if you're thinking of going into business, try to target the things that you can do with the least amount of resources immediately. So I in full transparency, I started my own business right before the Great Recession, a great time to start a business. And
that's when I bought my first house, by the way.
Yep. Did not survive, but like for those that were in business at the time, you can remember like November, phones ringing off the hook, contract signed. February, dead, like dead. And it impacted the construction industry huge. And so, a lot, I personally, I'm conservative to a fault. So if someone were asking me like you have, I would find what is the lowest barrier to entry possible that I can start generating a paycheck immediately with. That's what I would go after. And so, people talk about if you're going to jump ship, make sure there's a boat close to the dock, so you got to start doing some of those things. Maybe that means you work nights and weekends. And I know you got to be careful. I think you got to do business the right way, not burn bridges. That said, plenty of companies would throw you out with the bathwater tomorrow, so like you got to be a little careful. I don't think you should steal clients, but if there's clients that are faithful to you and they call you, that's not necessarily your fault. So I think your reputation is important, but I think most of that, if you can't go from a technician to just having a business. You got to start doing something, getting a footprint out there. So use where you're at to start building your presence, and maybe the right business for you to start isn't in restoration, so like start going to some of the friggin' chamber events, start networking with other contractors. The way I was able to start my business, we had an industrial hygienist, and when I left on good terms with the company I was at to start my business, and he actually helped me, let me borrow equipment or rent equipment and stuff like that. And so I took the hygienist with me, and he didn't have resources to do the mold work. But when he got mold work, then I was a sub for him. So like I maybe a little bit on the rare side, when we've had drywall people or contractors or even MIT people, I always told my people, if you're thinking about making a change, please let me know, because I want to be the first one to help you. And especially our carpenters, if you're ever thinking of starting your own business, I want you to be my sub, I want to be your first customer, so I think as an owner, I don't think that should be like, oh my God, my people are leaving. Well, like that's a you problem, It's very natural for somebody that's skilled to want to start their own business. So why don't you be the first investor in their business, and then, okay, you're not my carpenter anymore, but you can be my sub, so it's a little harder maybe with MIT, and those kinds of things. But even there, I mean, how many times do you need extra help with demo, or you got that fire clean out? And wouldn't it be awesome? The guy you trained or the gal that you trained is now your sub for fire jobs. Like, why not?
So you should be, to the owners out there. And I know we were initially talking about people starting, but for owners out there that are thinking about it, we go back to that culture word.
Yeah.
Learn how to be a little bit more proactive and identify these people that are in your company, because you talk about a way to scale your business. Yeah, you need to get the jobs and you need to get leads, but what better way than having a group? And I know, having a construction background, that you're only as good as your subcontractors are going to be. Especially when you're talking about quality of work and getting things done on time and paperwork for your, for what you're doing, making sure things are legit. Yeah. So owners out there, listen, be proactive. I have those employees that are just bang up, be the first person to step in and ask them. And we do the same thing here with our marketing clients. When we find that thing that's out there, we have guys that we've had people ask us about TikTok and things like that. And we don't want to leave it to them to ask us. We are here to partner with you to grow your business, and we're going to be proactive. We're going to address that first. And does that work no? I would say if you want to learn how to dance or whatever the case may be, go ahead and do that. So no, that was really great. Might not be what, the out the box, answer everybody probably be expecting, but it's real. And culture is a big part of it. Now, building, so getting leads, let's go back to that a little bit. Guys that are just starting out, guys that are maybe in the industry. There's a lot of guys out there that never hit that 500,000 mark. They've been in the business for 5 or 6 years that are struggling constantly. So I know you guys do program work, but a lot of people like to build relationships. And you mentioned that in the very beginning, how you were, either cold calling guys, whether you're calling like an indoor air quality company and saying, hey, we want to be your remediator, or you're an indoor air quality guy and you're trying to get some mold testing jobs. What's the best way, in your opinion or in your experience, to build these relationships with insurance companies, public adjusters, plumbers, roofers, who are going to be in those verticals are going to be to funnel these leads in, that referral kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I'll share too. Somebody on the socials was talking about, I'm going to go do my first cold calls with agents. So what should I do? And all these people are like, da, 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 da. And I think the first thing you ask is like, how's your family? Like build be a friggin' person.
You hit the nail on the head. Relationship.
Right? Yeah. Right. Yep. So, hey, I'm better than Serpro. So you go ahead and use me. Here's my card. See you later. Right. It's so funny. My good friend, Greg, who works for us, he got his appointment. I think it was an AmFam agent. Right. And so we go in, we sit down, and he's just going into it. He's like, he was so excited about what he does and what he's been learning. He's like, and the meeting, right? This is his first possible referral client. He's like, we come in, we do 4-foot flood cuts, and we put the plastic up, and then the machines come in, and then we can put the drywall in, and da 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 da.
We're going to Washington, D.C.
Yeah. So there's a pause, and I'm just kind of looking around, and I was like, oh, your son plays baseball, huh? And, and then so we start this conversation. So then in the car afterwards, when we still laugh about it, 4-foot flood cuts, 4-foot flood cuts. and it's just like, like they know the drill, right? An agent probably knows the drill, probably already has a contractor. I can tell you, the best agent I've ever had, when I first met with him, had a contractor that he loved. Yeah. So I see a lot of contractors saying like, well, those guys are terrible. You idiot. Like, that's getting you nowhere. That's probably getting you're not even on the list at that point. Just say, oh, I've heard great things about them. That's a great competitor. What I would like is, if they're ever busy or they can't get to a call, give me your crappiest job. That's normally what I say. Give us your crappiest job. And I tell my team, if these people call, we got to be on it, because they're not going to give you like a $300,000 fire out of the gate, right? Like, you're going to get a real crappy job. Yep. So, and you better knock it out of the water. Huh?
Right. You need to just get one opportunity to make that first impression outside of, the introduction that you're making. So, yeah. Yep.
And but don't be abused to where every lead they give you is the crappy lead. I usually say 3. I say the same thing with subcontractors when I onboard them. Give us 3 jobs, and we'll show you, how the process works and whether this is going to fit for you. Same thing with the agents. They're going to give us, or property managers. Let's get 3 jobs with this potential referral source, if we get to that point, and see how it goes. If it's clear they're just giving us the stuff that their other guy doesn't want, then that's not the agent for us. But it's harder even now. I mean, there's a lot of power being taken away from the agent. There's power being taken away from the adjusters. People are frustrated. So I think you always, whoever you're going after, the number one thing you got to think about is not whatever your friggin' pitch is what is their pain point?
Yes.
And what can you potentially, and again, people are like, well, their pain point is water damage. No, it's not. What does an agent want? They want to keep their client, right? Like they're in competition with all the other friggin' agents. They're in competition with Geico, or Allstate's in competition with Encompass, which is the online version of their product, that's stealing their clients, right? So, if a person's going to have an agent, there's only one reason, that's service, and you've got to be an extension of that, right? Property managers, realtors, they want it cheap, and that's not a game you want to play. So you got to find the few needles in the haystack that want service, So
what would you say, out of all of them, public adjusters, insurance companies, property managers, which one, if you had to choose one out of them to focus on, if you're just getting started or you really wanted to go, is there any that you think that are better options? I mean, I know this world is built on relationships. So at the end of the day, being tactful, setting expectations up front and building those relationships. But if you did have to pick one, can you pick one, or is it?
I guess I would turn it back to you. I think when you're first starting, you cast as wide of a net as possible. And one of the number one questions you're asking, you better be creating a spreadsheet, right? This is their name, their address, their emails. Get them on an email list, and try to hit them once a month. Don't flood them with information, but try to be consistent. And what you're doing those first couple of meetings is eliminating the ones that you don't want to go back to, right? Those people were jerks. They have no clue. Ask them. A good question to ask is, hey, do people call into if it's an agent, do people call into your office, and are you hands-on when it comes to the claims process? They're like, oh, we always refer them to 1-800 number. Well, probably not going to get a lead from them, right? Because they don't encourage their people to call in. So when I was in California, property managers were huge. We had 2 or 3 great property managers. When I was in Oregon, it was a hygienist, right? Like 50% of my work was from a hygienist. And then when I was in Eugene, it was a little bit of everything. I had schools, a couple of people at the University of Oregon was a big account for me. And hospitals. I started in Eugene. I started a networking group for facilities managers, and that that got us a good amount of work. And then up here, it's been mitigation contractors, and where else? Mostly mitigation contractors currently is where, but again, we're focusing on the repair side. So I think it depends. I think if you're starting, you go to everything, every BNI group, every whatever networking group. Usually you can go 3 times without paying, right? Go to all of them. Rotary Club.
Just change your business name and go again 3 more times. I was a member of BNI. I learned, and we did well. And being an entrepreneur, I kind of like bucket everything into the same bucket, right? You're starting a business, you need to grow that business, and so you should be casting that really wide net, and you should be touching base with each one of those people. I want to go back real quick with the Dyojo podcast. You've had, everybody on there that you can think of. That I could imagine. Who's been your favorite guest so far? Is that going to make anybody mad? I don't care if it does.
Nobody listens, right?
Okay, good. It's just between you and I and the other 2 people that are watching right now, and probably one of them is JC.
Well, dude, Ed Cross, if you don't know Ed Cross, restoration lawyer, you'll always learn something when he's on. My first guest was David Princeton. He's now writing for CNR magazine. He helps people when their claims are doubtful and disputed. I think it's very important to learn from people that are industry adjacent or outside of the industry. Yes. On a personal level, John Downey was really, he was the original founder of CleanFacts magazine. He was very personal in his story. And I thought that was, there was a level of transparency there that, and especially his interview on IAQ radio. And then I personally have an interest in history. So I've got to interview Claude Blackburn, the founder of Dry Ease. Lloyd Weaver has passed away. He invented the Porta Dryer, but his sons, that's an upcoming episode. Cliff Zotnick, the Z-Man, and Pete Consigli, the global restoration watchdog. So anytime that our conversation unearths some aspect of restoration history, those are ones that I zero in on. And we've been very fortunate that everybody that we've had on, I feel, has brought some kind of value. And the the nice thing about editing the show is you get to cut out, stuff that you're like,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And by the way, your edits are so funny. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts. Your little bites that you put out there when you're advertising, like, man, I do love them. We definitely are kindred spirits in our personalities as far as what we think is funny, and maybe some people might not, but I really don't care. I'm not doing this for, for anybody but myself and the people that are going to find the value in it.
Yep.
And so speaking of finding value, so outside of being a best-selling author, right? I mean, I can say that you are a contractor, and you are also the host of a podcast. Dyojo's also, you also help guys. You also have like a business coaching kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that and how people can get in touch with you if they do need some help? And they don't have to read like me.
I'm super fortunate. I have a good job, and so I don't need anything that I'm doing to pay the bills. So I think the same thing goes in your business, and then coaching and those kinds of things. Is like the price is the price, right? So I just had a conversation with somebody today, and they didn't like the price, and it was like, well, literally, you don't understand how much of an inconvenience it is to everything else I'm doing to do it. And I don't mean that to be boastful. I just know the value of my time and what I want to be involved in. And so, I wish you well. I refer more people to other people than I take on in that aspect, just because, and honestly, like you said, for the podcast, one guy said annoying, but helpful. Somebody else said, the edits are cringe, or, there's just too much going on. And that just encourages me in the book. I'll tell you a fun story and maybe a little bit how I'm wired. Chapter 2 has, it's a quote from Pee-wee Herman. And then I drew the scene in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, one of my favorite movies. Oh my gosh. Out. And David Princeton, I'm calling him out. He was like, dude, you need to not, that's, you're getting on iffy territory. And I was like, David, you saying that makes me want to double down. Yeah. And so I made it even more prominent in the chapter. And so, and I've gotten some feedback from people like, I just couldn't read the chapter. And I was like, perfect.
Oh, man. That opening scene of Pee-wee, the Big Adventure. I mean, dude, that got me hooked on Mr. T cereal. Right? When that went away, that was like a big moment in my life when you could no longer find that. Or, my parents did have the money to afford like cereal that wasn't just a big chunk of wheat that just came out of the box. No, that's awesome. I can't wait to check that out. So you're helping people, with your podcast, you're helping them with business coaching. Look, if you're a guy out there or a lady out there and you're a restorer and you're struggling in any aspect of your business, you got to check them out. And listen, if you're putting a price on knowledge and your success in your business, then, obviously they're not a good candidate for what you do, because really the information and your years of experience and all the missteps you've probably taken in your life, like most entrepreneurs or anybody that's in the industry,
all the failures. Yep.
And that's value. I mean, you can't put a price tag on that. You when people ask like, what's the price? I think that's too high. And you're like, well, what are you basing that number on? My 25 years in doing this, and like, I've made all the same mistakes, and I've been in the BNI groups, and I'm calling everybody in the sun, and I'm not getting anywhere. Yep. And, we deal with it too. Guys will call us, say, oh, we bounce around from company to company. We tried throwing money at pay-per-click, and then we've done this website and done this landing page, and we're tried this and that. And then we say, well, this is what you need to do to get leads. I mean, you can look it up anywhere. There's a book. There's plenty of books. I mean, it's cut and dry. So that's too expensive. And it's like, well, you've spent $250,000 in the last 2 years on digital marketing agencies, banking on ambiguity of their services, and kind of just knowing that you don't know anything about it and just saying, oh yeah, it's working. You got to spend more money. And now you're coming to me saying, please, we need help. And then when we say, hey, it's going to cost some money, like, whoa. Wait a minute. So, and I'm good with that. I understand that mentality. And that's one of the other reasons I wrote the book. Well, it's okay, great. You don't want to pay somebody to do it. Here you go. Here's the blueprint. I mean, everything is in there. I know I say it all the time, and it's really refreshing to hear that you've looked through it. Again, the landscape of digital marketing changes on a weekly basis. So, I mean, like I told you before, we're already working on the next revised edition 3 of this. But what people need to understand is guys like you that are out there, that place I guess, value, education over profit, you're going to end up winning. You're going to end up getting there a little further, and people will catch on eventually, whether it's for the entertainment value of what you bring to the table with your podcast, or the actual tangible value you bring with your coaching, and then the value your company is going to be bringing to your area in Washington State. I think it's really cool, and it's been really fun getting to know you. You've shared your background with us, how you got in the industry. You've given some really good, solid advice to guys out there that might be thinking about taking that next step, whether it's within their own company or starting off on their own. You guys got to check out his books. You can find them on Amazon, the Be Intentional series. I know that they're really good. I've seen, they're bestsellers, right? I mean, I've seen the post.
Moderately selling.
I can't edit this. Remember, I can't edit. They are bestsellers. New York Times has listed them as 3 must-read books if you are in a restoration space. Jon, I can't thank you enough. When can people tune into your podcast?
Most of the time on Thursdays. So I've scaled back to closer to every other week. And it just depends. But like you said, almost always posting content and messing around with different platforms. Can I just say, for people coming to you and interested in coaching, the worst thing you can do, I think, if you're going to get a coach or if you're going to reach out to somebody, is be ambiguous about what the heck you want to solve. So before you reach out to somebody else, if you're reaching out to somebody else to tell you what your problem is and how to solve it, you're just setting yourself up to be used and abused, right? So if someone's coming to you looking for internet, what do you want from the internet? And if you're coming to somebody as a coach, what problem do you want to solve? And I think you would agree, somebody should be able, if you're going to a coach or any other service, our customers expect us to give them an estimate of the cost, the scope, and the duration that we think it'll take to get to whatever, once we've defined what the goal is. So if a coach can't say, I think that's about a 3 months, let's give it 3 months and then see where we're at. But I think we could get roughly to here, right? I think you would be able to do the same with SEO.
Absolutely.
I want to be on page 1. Okay, well, you can spend $10,000 a month and we might be able to get there in 6 months, or, I only have $500 a month. Okay, well, it's probably going to be 6 years,
Or there's other ways to do it. And honestly, man, it's so funny how, this information that you're sharing, just for, if anybody hasn't realized, this is applicable to everything you do in life. So if you're in general construction, right, and you provide kitchen remodels and somebody calls you up and says, hey, we need a kitchen. How much?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Do you want, how many cabinets do you want? And then you got guys out there, and listen, it happens in the restoration industry. Digital marketing is the biggest predatory. Now, I don't want to say biggest. I don't want to crap on anybody, but there's a lot of opportunity to prey on people through the ambiguity of your services, right? So construction, marketing, you have to be super clear with what you're struggling with, what your goals are. If you're just, trying to, get healthier, that's like such a broad stroke of a brush. What do you mean? Like, you mental, physical, what? I don't understand. So that's a great piece of advice. If you're looking for a business coach, know what you're wanting to get coached on. Don't just call a kitchen remodel company and say, I need a kitchen, and then hang up the phone and then give them a 1-star review because you got, one cabinet and a half a sink or something like that. Or you've got a kitchen in a school for ants, like on a Zoolander, what am I supposed to do with this? Is this a school for ants? But no, that was really good. And it's true, so a few things, if anybody's going to take anything away from this, be intentional. I'm not going to stop saying that, man, because that's it's such a big part of our culture here and what I believe in my personal life. You have to have intent with every step that you take, and you'll realize that a lot of your failures you have, or a lot of failures are just perceived failures because you're never at that goal yet until you get to that goal, right? So be intentional with what you do. Whether you're trying to market your business, be intentional. Have a why, have a what, and try to understand what it is these people are going to be doing for you. And that's one of the big things we're trying to do with our book. And that's what your books are doing. And that's what your podcast is doing, is helping people understand what that end game is, and educating your customer or your potential customer or your contemporaries is a big part of trying to reset that mentality that you just mentioned to where, have a goal in mind before you take that next step, because the keys are there. The answers are there. We're not reinventing the wheel. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're sharing your experience. So man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I think with that, we're hitting just about under an hour. We're going to go ahead and close up shop for the day. We had some pretty funny comments. I can't wait to dive into those. And I definitely want to have you on in the future. So how does somebody get in touch with you if they do want some coaching or maybe just wants to connect with you?
The Dyojo.com. And my email is IZ, the letter I and the letter Z at the Dyojo.com. And then the podcast is on YouTube.com/the Dyojo. Instagram, Facebook's, got the TikToks, so.
You got to show me some TikTok dances. But listen, Jon, thanks again, man. I want to have you on again. Anytime you want to come on, be a guest, anything that you can think of that you can provide value to our 4 or 5 users. One time we had 15 downloads. So, not bragging, but we did have 15 downloads on Spotify.
Hey!
Love to have you on as a guest, man. We're going to continue to follow. Make sure you follow Jon at the Dyojo, literally on every single social media channel. Check him out on YouTube, like he just mentioned, /the Dyojo. He's constantly contributing to R&R Magazine. So he's very involved in the industry. So if you're looking for somebody to be a beacon of light of information, you got to check him out. And if you are a person with property damage needs in Washington State, you got to look up Eris Restoration. I heard those guys are pretty cool. Their logo is pretty dope too. Jon, thanks again, man. We will talk to you soon, bro. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing good things. And anybody out there that's considering something similar, just do it, so.
Just do it. All right, buddy. Hey, listen, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Boom. Thanks, Ben.
Yes, sir.